It's time for more on-ice shenanigans, as today we're taking a look back at what is called one of the greatest sports games ever made. This is NHL 94 on the Sega Genesis. Released in 1993, this game helped to whet the appetites of hockey fans a month before the start of the 93-94 NHL season. While this edition is the third entry in Electronic Arts' NHL franchise, it was considered to be the real first time that the yearly iteration title started to grow legs. As soon as you hit the start button from the title screen, you're taken to a screen that allows you to select game mode, teams, and a handful of game options. For game modes, you can play an exhibition game, play a full season as one team, or go right into the playoffs for bracket elimination games, all of which had the option to play with 1 or 2 players, as well as 3 or 4 if you used the multi-tap accessory. The teams you could select were all the teams present from the previous 92-93 NHL season, as well as the league's newest expansion teams, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim and the Florida Panthers. In addition to this, there were also 2 all-star teams consisting of the game's best-rated players, split into the East Division and the West Division. Game options you could set were the length of each period, that could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or the NHL standard 20 minutes. You could also set if the goalies were automatically controlled, or you could set them to manual if you wanted. Penalties could be turned off if you wanted some good old 80s style thrashing gameplay, and line changes could be set to off, on, or automatic. Player stats were based off of the final stats of the actual NHL players from the previous season. So if you're wondering why Mr. Great One himself, Wayne Gretzky, wasn't listed as the best player of the game, that's because he didn't have nearly as good a season statistically as the likes of Teemu Selanne, Mario Lemieux, and Patrick Waugh, to name a few. But remember, this is a team sport, so the strength of any team is a sum of its parts. One team could have had a couple high-ranking players, but the rest of the players brought the average down. Equally, a team could have had some high but not the best players, but having more of those players made the team average much higher. And of course, when you look at the all-star teams, they're through the roof in talent. When you get into the game, it's set up as a bird's-eye view, and you play vertically, moving up and down the ice in a north-south way. This angle gave a better view of the ice to allow the player to see more tactical actions and set up plays. Throughout the game, too, a box in the upper left would pop in depending on situations. On face-offs, there was a close-up of the referee and 2 centers so that you could time your face-off movement properly. And if there was a delayed penalty, or threat of going offside, the box would show the referee making the appropriate pose so you can act accordingly. Not only were the controls really good in this game, but it was impressive how each button's functions would change on the fly depending on what's going on. Face-offs, offense, defense, controlling the goalie, they all had the controls switch up when those situations were activated. Face-offs had you mainly use the B button to control the puck to a teammate, or the C button to keep control by the centerman, assuming they win the face-off. While on offense, you automatically take control of your player that has the puck, using the B button to pass and C button to shoot. You could also initiate a line change if you had that option turned on. The player will flip the puck down the ice to allow time for the lines to change based on your follow-up button press. This can take some getting used to, but it was set up in a great way to make these changes on the fly in a high-paced game. On defense, you would use the B button to change control of your player that's closest to the puck, and will allow you to attempt to poke check with your stick if you're close enough. You could use the A button to clutch and grab at your opponent, and the C button to not only get a burst of speed to try and catch up to the puck handler, but this will also allow you to perform a body check when you're close enough to the target. You gotta pick your spots with these defensive tactics though, as they could lead to penalties for your team if you get caught going overboard. Something new added to NHL 94 was a shootout mode. You could set up a roster of shooters from a team and take turns against an opponent to score. Both teams would skate upwards, allowing the player to see the net for more precise aiming of the puck. This could also show up in a normal game if a player that's on a breakaway gets interfered with, thus allowing a penalty shot. It was rare to see during a normal game, so it was nice that they set up an entire mode dedicated to the shootout. Another one of the many additions was the one-timer, not present in NHL 93. In this edition, you could immediately input a pass and shoot command that would fire off a hard-to-track one-timer shot. A simple but really cool addition, especially if it resulted in a goal. Controlling the movement of the players felt awkward at first, clunky even. Then I realized this is what it's like to skate in a high-paced game of hockey. You can't just change direction on a dime. There's strides and rotation angles that have to be taken into account. And it's impressive that this game did in fact make movement feel a bit more realistic that way. With all the new additions added over the prior year's edition, along with having all the teams, players, motion, and rules from the actual NHL, every period feels and flows like a real NHL game. The gameplay of NHL 94 gets a 10 out of 10. Looking at the title screen and considering the Sega Genesis limited amount of color display, it was impressive that they were able to throw in a photo of some actual NHL action as a backdrop. Looking closer, you can see that they were very specific about which colors they chose to make it a simpler image. NHL Ice is pretty basic colors, then the team jerseys also keep it tight in the color wheel. The smart move here though was graying out the crowd behind the boards, using lighter grays to draw in shapes. The menus maybe could have used some more flair though. They might be trying to replicate arena boards or something, but all I'm seeing is Windows DOS just looking at these menu options. The pregame matchup presentation is not bad, but just boring looking. I bet you it would have been better had the background at least been scrolling for starters, just to add some flair. I get it's not the meat of the game, but you can't just slap things together the night before and expect to get an A. Now, the mid-game menu though, that one is fun. Themed after an arena jumbotron, it also displayed similar information as its real-life counterparts. It also allowed you to look into a plethora of game stats. As for the actual on-ice action, this is where the game shines, but it was also probably not all that difficult to pull off. Even though the game calls out the individual arena names of the home teams, it's all played on the same background, which makes sense since a standard NHL ice surface are the bulk of said arenas. That said, I should mention that the logo of the home team is displayed at the center ice though, so that does change between arenas. The camera also leaves room to not only see the on-ice actions, but also the player boxes, the penalty boxes, and the crowd, making it all feel closer to a real NHL game. One improvement that could have happened though, was changing up some colors of the crowd to match that of the home team, but I will admit, that actually is asking too much. The crowd animations keep them alive as it is, and there's even speed variations that change up with cheers and boos. Oh, and let's not forget the actual players themselves. All the skaters are the same model, just different colors representing their teams. Same goes for the goalies. This then allowed for both standard models to get a ton of animations and angles. For example, just looking at the skating animations, there's an 8-point turn with full skating animation on all 8 angles. So really, the turns feel even smoother than most games would have offered in that era. Add on top of that all the other actions of a hockey game, and they're all fleshed out. Goalies included. They have so many different styles of saving the puck, from diving saves to toe saves. I'm pretty sure I saw the Patrick Waugh pose as well. When you take a microscope to it, the game didn't really need to add all the little details it did to the fast-paced action, but because they did, is likely why they managed to garner so much love for the game, and made it feel as real as possible for the era. The graphics of NHL 94 get a 9 out of 10. The first tune you encounter in the game sounds like a classic but underwhelming theme. It's got some weird middle ground slow energy, and I think that really has to do with the pacing of it. Once you get into the pregame, now we're talking. There's an energetic theme worthy of the sports networks that gets you hyped up for what's to come. The third and final original track in the game goes back down in energy, but it works for where it's applied in the mid-game menu. It's a tune of focus, which matches the fact that if you're spending a lot of time here, it means you're sifting through pages and pages of stats. But now to really sell the NHL feel, the game houses multiple arena organ tracks that are licensed from the league, so you get real songs used by the real teams, just played on a Genesis chiptune organ. Even some team-specific ones, like the Hartford Whalers' Brass Bonanza, or the St. Louis Blues using When the Saints Go Marching In. They even got the rights to the Beatles' birthday song that was playing all over the league at the time. Sound effects all worked spectacularly, from pacing to accuracy. There's always a hum of the crowd through gameplay, but when anything noteworthy happens, you get the roar of the crowd. They even have cheer and jeer variations too. The goal horn is a classic fireman's whine, and the sound of bodies thudding and grunts from the hits give it an ice-level quality. And let's not forget the crisp sound of the puck movement, hearing passes hit tape to tape, or a slap shot that either clanks off the post or lands hard into the net. The music and sound of NHL 94 gets a 10 out of 10. I wasn't so deep into hockey in 94, so I never owned this game. Yet many friends and family that owned a Genesis or a Super Nintendo had it, so it made its way into the rotation often. As robust a game as it was at the time, it was still quite approachable for newbies like me, so I definitely had some fun with it. Especially so since the vets would say, let's play on the same team, as we could. The game sounds are really what entertained my brain though, mainly from the Genesis version. The buzz of the guitar and the zing of the organ were great, and I'm sure a lot of people who played this game would feel the same. The nostalgia hit gets an 8 out of 10. Multiple factors went into making this game as iconic as it became. It only being the third entry in EA's NHL franchise meant there weren't a lot of people that saw a hockey game like this often until NHL 94 came out and got slotted into consoles all over the place. The added features over NHL 93 were so much that they even listed them out in the instruction manual. 72 new features to be precise. The influence this game had on hockey games of the future can be very apparent. It would be added as an extra game in a few future EA NHL titles, and despite more recent entries playing East-West, some included an NHL 94 mode with the gameplay going north-south on the screen. And when you look at any retro-inspired hockey games that get made these days, you can see how much they're emulating the sights, sounds, and gameplay of this title for the nostalgic vibe. This game was a mainstay in every bedroom and basement with a console, and it was easy to see why. The music and sound effects were on point, the gameplay fast and tactical, and having all the licenses of the National Hockey League made NHL 94 feel like you were right there in a real hockey game, housed in a cartridge.